for me, the only lyrics that really touch me are the ones that come out for the first time while I'm singing.
This is Champagne is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champagne Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. Today, I have Justin Walden, and you may know Justin Walden from the band Scarecrow Adams, Lionzz, Super Space Fighters, Hurkles, and Whitty Whitesell and the Life Parade. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Today, we're going to be listening to your song, Old Man in a Red Hat, off of the album Old Man in a Red Hat, released in 2011.
Cool.
But when you wake up, you always know that you were never unconscious in sleep. You exactly know how you sleep.
No, anything. Any trick in the book.
Old man in a red hat, walking slowly by.
Kindness that you have given to me.
No, don't take it away.
Says you mind if I sit down?
Touching the guitar to their music, as they went in.
Just for a while. No, I don't need your money, but thank you for your smile.
My music is very romantic.
And it said, Jesus, Buddha, or Muhammad, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. It doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you believe.
When he was little, I figured I could take him.
Something so simple could be misleading.
He said to me, "You've got a lot of nerves."
Especially when it's the truth. I only wish someone had told me
He said, "You got a lot of nerves."
in my youth.
He said, "'Cause there ain't no love in this world." No, he said, love is gone. Love is gone.
Jesus, Buddha, or Muhammad, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves.
Ended up with me.
Doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you believe.
And all he felt was left to go back.
As long as you
A friend
believe.
who had died in his platoon, he was a medic. He had to. They were walking through the jungle. Oh, and one of the things he said was,
Well, I believe in a sunset. I believe in the rain. Don't believe in that medicine, 'cause I don't believe in pain. Old man in a red hat gets up and walks away. Title of the album. He says thanks for listening. Maybe I'll see you again someday. I don't know what is wrong, but I must be on my way. Jesus, Buddha, or Muhammad, Alibaba and the 40 would it be? Doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you believe. As long as you believe. As long as you believe. La da 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 la la la. La 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 la
Picture show, cosmic motion picture show in the sky. You will be surprised. You never analyze that as soon as you sleep and dream, you can create a world like this. With people suffering from cancer and disease and wars and some smiling, babies born, old men dying. Then when you wake up, you see that all those things were made of your dream consciousness. So remember, this is the same, nothing different. And until you find that out, this world is a terrible show.
Welcome back. Justin, my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the lyrics or was it the music?
This song, actually, it was kind of the way I write, is both at the same time. And I used to just sit down with the guitar when I was inspired, put the jam box, hit record on the cassette, and see what comes. Because I don't remember what I'm doing most of the time, so I have to hit record. The reason I picked this one was because how it came about. I was just writing this song, and I kind of like, for the first time, could see these words coming before I sang them. And I'm like, huh? I can't sing that. That's going to get me in trouble. I can't. And then this happens in like a quarter second, you know, and then I sing it. I sing the chorus of the song. This is going to be, you know, people are going to hate me for this and blah, blah, blah. But I sang it through. And then when I listened to it back, I'm like, it was like before that song, all my songs were about kind of love and loss and, you know, just kind of from another dimension. And this song made me feel like I was participating in the creation of the song, not just me telling a story, but it was like a channel that's available. If you're listening, there's stuff to play. This was the first song that I'd kind of recognized, wait, this isn't about me. I'm like just listening and hearing something that needs to be either I need to hear or somebody else needs to hear.
It sounds like the chorus started first, right? So that was the loop that was kind of in your head.
Well, it was the first thing was the first line was it came out, old man in a red hat. I had painted an old man with a purple hat, but purple didn't sing very well. So I just sang old man in a red hat. Then the chorus came of like, it wasn't some guy that I actually met that said these things. It was just kind of like a story that was floating by as I was singing. And I'm like, that's not anything I've ever heard before. That's something that I'm supposed to say.
So do you see this song as kind of a departure from your previous work? Because it sounds like you're finding this unusual, like this is not your usual writing pattern, or am I mischaracterizing this?
No, it's just, this was what started a different pattern. So like this is from my like first, like when I was becoming Scarecrow Adams and finding my voice. So this is like, I released it in 2011, but I made it in 92.
Wow.
And so me and my dad built a studio in our house in Laurel Canyon, and I had to learn how to use it. And so I was lucky enough to have everything there, and I did not waste a second. Anytime I've written the lyrics down first, they usually end up in the notebook and they never get used. For me, the only lyrics that really touch me are the ones that come out for the first time while I'm singing. It's like I'm trying to see what is it my subconscious is trying to tell my conscious mind, and I kind of tune in. That was the beginning of when I realized that, it wasn't my talent or wasn't what I could do. It was just that I could listen differently than some, and I had something else that I wanted to hear that I wasn't hearing. You know, there wasn't another band doing what I was wanting to hear, and so I'm more like a kind of crazy painter in a recording studio. I kind of make songs like each one is a painting. Things don't have to connect. Tracks don't have to be a certain way. The Old Man in Red Hat is one of the most probably pure and authentic. That's like pre-Pro Tools, you know, no drum edits and things like that. And so that's just kind of the reason it's one of my favorites is just how it came about and how it shifted my gears. And it's like there's a little conversation that goes through the song between two other random things. So if you hear, there's a woman's voice, and that's Joni Mitchell from a radio interview promo CD that she had done. And then the other one, I think, is like the Maharishi or the Self-Realization Fellowship dude. And it was like from a meditation tape. During that time, A&R guys, come into the studio, record label people, and they would always talk through the song. So I just thought I'd put a conversation in the song to get the people in the room to stop talking. And so I like literally hit play on both machines and record on 2 tracks in the song. And then there were bits where they were kind of talking. It made sense with the song. And so I just left that in. And that wasn't like manipulated or anything or edited. It was literally like throw it in on the fly using 3 tape machines and stuff. So it's kind of a cool, I always tended to try to add an extra dimension to my songs. I like having something else going on that's in its own world.
The more that I listen to it, the more it's deceptively simple but complex all at the same time. It starts off, it's a very simple strumming pattern with a guitar. You've got this kind of floating conversation in the background that somehow syncs up and has some lines in there that just match what is going on, but also creates this weird subtext. You're drumming off of the bridge, which is I believe in a sunset, like bouncing off the edges of the pockets is what I like to think of that drumming. You know what it reminded me of, and I know that this isn't necessarily the style, but if you've ever heard Piggy from 9 Inch Nails off of the Downward Spiral album, there's that drum part at the end. It seems like it's just jumping all over the place, but it's like somehow lands in the pocket, but you're like, how did that happen? But anyway, sorry, I don't know if that was like an influence for you at all, or
no, that was, but I could hear that. No, during that time I was just holed up in my studio making my own stuff. Like I wasn't really listening to Trent or whatever until kind of later on. Actually, I got asked to go work for him years later for, that's my favorite thing to do. Is it's kind of like, feels like you're falling out of the drum stool, but somehow you come back in right before, and that to me is living. That's the kind of edge I like to be on, not to take people out necessarily. Those circles can get bigger and smaller and change, and that's more like intuitive drumming for me. It's more like just kind of letting go and going, oh man, I can't believe I nailed that one.
I'm curious, like, how did this song evolve from these swirling ideas into the idea that it became? Like, in the end, it seems more like it's things don't matter, but being kind to somebody and taking the time to interact with them is really what's the most important.
That and honoring everyone else for who they are and how they think and what they believe, and not saying it's one way or another. I've gotten in trouble for that. Like I remember working on a Sevendust record and playing it for a few of the people there, and they were like, "You're from the dark side." And I'm like, "No, man." And it was just a polarizing song at first. It was just not really being talked about as much as it is today back then. So like doing it, I wrote down like that, 5 minutes or 7 minutes of verses. I've always kind of been about, let's try to use as little as we need, tell the story with as few things as possible. And like, I don't need all 7 verses or that. Once I got that arrangement, I started going to open mics in like Universal City and like made friends with some other bands. And that was like always everybody's favorite. There's that song and another song, Too Much Money, Not Enough Love. And it's like through the years, I even still like this song. I did everything by myself in that studio until the mix on that one. I'd hit play and record at the console and then run into the other room and shut the squeaky door. And every song of mine had tons of doors closing and opening at the beginning and end, and run in, hit play, and then go play the drums. And then come back and do the bass part, and then come back and do it. A lot of times I would even lay the drums down before I had the other stuff. Just because that's what I was first, a drummer, and it's like, I just go in and sing the vocal and play the guitar at the same time, get a good take. And then it was like, I didn't spend very much time. I was kind of just really learning, and everything was, it's all really simple. There's nothing like new in the melodic structure and the chords or anything, but it was just, it says what I was seeing. When you've listened to a song and played one, since I was 90, I wrote it in like 91. I have songs like, I was trying to decide which one. It's like, oh, my newest one is my favorite one, and then I'm like, but that one's not done yet. So then I'm like, what's my, what's the one of the most meaningful ones? Because it's like, my dad has his, How About Us, the band Champagne.
Yeah.
And it's like, And then now we have one together because I got to add to the lyrics on that newest version I did. So that's pretty cool.
Some of the things towards the end when he said, thanks for listening. Maybe I'll see you again someday. Some of the background vocals, it feels like you're just kind of jamming out a little bit with your voice. Did you feel like you just kind of put pieces together? If you were to like relive all of the parts, would you be able to remember them? Or was it like some of these are really improvisational?
I'm pretty improvisational on most things. Like the vocal I'll pick is usually the first vocal where I got it right. If I were to break this song down, this one's the most non-compartmentalized because I went in, played guitar, sang it, immediately went in, played the drums, and then went back, got the sampler, and started playing the upright bass sample part. Favorite parts were always doing harmonies. Because it was like, I was never a singer. I was a drummer. I didn't start singing till I had a song to sing kind of thing. So it's like my favorite thing, but it's a weird thing when you start letting go and letting yourself kind of scream or sound weird, or like I was kind of discovering my voice at that time. If you listen to a bunch of my music, throughout the years, there's kind of a constant like strange harmony background singer or three. That's where it's like, that's what I have fun. And I'm like not going into, I'm going to sing this fifth and this ninth. It's like, I hit record and it's like, okay, let's see. And then you just sing and it's like, okay, some of them are really bad. But most of the time now, it's just, I trust my intuition. I've been doing it long enough that like when I feel the inspiration, I know it's important to open up a session or hit record on something. Every time I've ever not done it, you're like, you're playing. It's like, oh my God, I just sang like 10 minutes of the best verses I've ever come up with. Oh, well, I guess that one's just for the homies, like, all right, that one's not for the world. And there's that. Like, if I pick up a guitar with like my friend Jeff Hanneman's pick, it's like, oh, time to open up Pro Tools or time to open up Ableton and let's see what happens. Now, for me, my favorite songs are the ones that I did not set out to build. They're the song that came to me, and then it's my job like a sculptor to kind of define what it is that is going to look like or feel like.
If you would characterize your writing style, would that be your general writing style? Is that you piece it together? Do you ever have a fully written song, or do you just kind of start with an idea and then you just kind of, it explodes from there and you kind of rein it back in? It sounds like you don't really have a finished song when you go into the studio, so to speak.
Well, I've done that. Like say Old Man in Red Hat's been done like 5 different times by, everybody wanting to, let me produce my version or whatever. When I try to re-record a song, it feels like I'm acting or something. I don't know. I've tried it enough that I don't get the same kind of joy from the fact that song has kind of the moment captured like it's on film and the imperfections are fine. It's like I leave songs alone, even if I've changed the lyrics throughout the years. It's like the original version, is like the thing. And so a lot of my songs happen all at once, but mostly then it becomes an editing process. It's like a subtractive, just cutting out verses and trying to get it down to a, like I want to take, like I love a song that's like 2 minutes and 45 seconds, but you feel like you've went 7 minutes different places. When I talk, I go off on tangents. I go off on tangents in my music all the time.
The thing is when you can go off on a tangent and somehow bring it back and have it make sense. I think that's like a special part about what music can do. It's just like, oh, well, just change this key back. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, and now we're back. I think that's like one of the cool things about music. Do you have a favorite line in this song? A favorite part? What is the part that you think like nails it best in the song? Like, what's the peak to this song?
Well, it doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you believe. But the first words, the like kind of the polarizing words, Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad, Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you believe. And it's like, while that was happening, I'm going, oh man, people are going to call me blasphemous and whatever. And then I see the next line coming, literally, and I see Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. I'm like, I'm thinking of the children's book, and I'm like, what? Now I'm relating it to that. Oh boy! And I just let myself sing it, and then it just shifted everything because I'm like, like that wasn't something that I went into writing that song to say, I
Right.
I didn't go in, and I've written many, many more kind of different perspectives of the same thing throughout the year. I kind of have my name game song about every 10 or so years, so there's a few more. The ones that I remember the moment writing, nature is a big inspiration, and part of being inspired, it's the nature of ourselves in a way. Like, to pay attention to what it is that we're supposed to bring out in the art. It's always been a healing thing for me. It keeps me sane. I never started making music to get a record deal or to do any of that. I just happened to be an engineer and work in a studio and had my own things to make, and then I started getting hired by other bands because of the stuff I was making in the studio. And I'm amazed it's like that I'm still making music and making Scarecrow Adams songs. It's been a lifesaver, especially during the pandemic, even though it didn't really change my life. I'm really a hermit in the studio anyway. It's like I have everything around me that I need to kind of feed that need to like nurture the creativity, because it's like the day, if a week goes by that I'm not doing something musically, and there's been months at times, like I can physically feel kind of like I'm getting older and debilitating, and then it's like a couple days in, I'll be like, wait, I need to go make a beat for no reason. I need to go get the MPC and just, let me get that, load some samples up. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, it's amazing. It's amazing. I feel great. And how come I have to remind myself that constantly?
Yeah.
That it's like, wow, it's been a funky week this week. And you're like, what have you been doing? Oh, watching Netflix, putting off that edit or that mix or that thing, and so it's really nice to have somebody listen to it, It's like it's already done its job for me once I've written it and recorded it. So after that, it's more about like, oh, hey, this is something that I enjoyed. Here, check it out,
I want to pose something to you that I had as a thought while I was listening to this just before we started the interview. Actually, I had a moment where it's like, wait, maybe, just maybe, he's referring that the old man in the red hat is him meeting himself. He said, thanks for listening. Maybe I'll see you again someday. And I was like, what if he was time traveling to go see himself?
Dude, if you saw the painting is behind your head, and it is. That's exactly what it is. It was like that, like it was coming from, like another dimension, that message. And it's like, hey, you. And it's like I've been watching a lot of time travel shows lately. But it's, it's like the painting has the purple hat guy here.
So at this point, Justin gets up from his seat and grabs the painting to show me. And
then
nice.
There's like the spirit of Joni Mitchell behind it,
Check out my Instagram account for a picture of Justin showing me the painting.
Speaking of, I got to play her that song after I did it and get her okay to use her voice.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so that's another reason why I'm like, yep, even Joni heard that version on her back porch, Nice. And I'd named that record Vulgar Electricity, which was from a line from her Night Ride Home album that I was listening to. And I'm like, hey, Joni, I'm going to call this record Vulgar Electricity. Is that cool? She's like, I love it. I have one cassette of that record that I bought from somebody for $50 off of eBay. I found my original, like, handmade cassette.
Really?
From that. And I got it. I think I have like 6 or 7 records on Bandcamp, right? And what I had done was I had never put out anything. And I was living in Colorado on the mountain, and one day it was actually like a lunar eclipse. And I'm like watching it, and I'm like, oh, you need to release a record in 11 days, and then you need to release a record every 11 days until you're done with these period of times. What I did was I would go through the time period. I went through like 91 through 93, picked the best songs, and just condensed it because I was far enough away from them that I was able to like let them go. And so all those records represent a time period and kind of like the best, the kind of the most clear songs that exist. But man, I've got like thousands. I mean, I've got ridiculous amounts.
Even in the midst of the current coronavirus pandemic, the Jubilee Cafe is continuing to serve packaged, home-cooked meals free to all every Monday evening, 5 to 6:30 p.m. Meals are available for pickup outside the 6th Street door to the Community United Church of Christ in Champaign, Illinois, 805 South 6th Street. Jubilee Cafe's mission remains the same. Feed hungry people by cooking healthy and delicious meals. We are open to anyone who cares to receive a meal. For information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email us at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, Justin, do you have a favorite past venue in Champaign-Urbana that's like your favorite?
Oh, man, well, I loved playing at Mabel's. I loved going to see the Elvis Brothers and Combo Audio at Mabel's. And like I was playing at Mabel's when I was 15, I think, and my mom would have to bring me to the back door and tell them it was okay. Oh, man, Guido Sinclair, Nature's Table, Bantuku. Man, I used to live at Nature's Table for music. I was going there as soon as I had a driver's license. Like all the time. That was the hang. You know, I only sat in once. I was just having a great time, and then the song ended, and then I opened my eyes, and I'm like I did like what you weren't supposed to do, like sitting in with the jazz guys. Like I was just had my eyes closed and kept playing. Man, I love that's one of my favorite places that I heard music I would have never heard.
Yeah. So you started off as a drummer. So at this point, you're 15. You're playing in bands as a drummer at Mabel's?
Mabel's, Tritos Uptown. It was probably 16 and 17 when we were playing. We had like the Hurkles only had like 3 or 4 gigs. Whitty's thing, we would go tour play every college like around and that stuff, but I didn't ever really like driving 3 hours to a gig. And so I just loved gigs that were in Champaign more. Mabel's was great, but I think Tritos was one of my favorites just because that was just a cool little place.
Do you have a memory of like the best show that you either played at or you saw in Champaign-Urbana?
The best show I saw in Champaign would have been Farm Aid. I was going to say Police, Ghost in the Machine tour because my dad, that was my first big concert when Joan Jett and the Blackhearts opened up. I only went because of the Joan Jett single Crimson and Clover or something, and I remember the Police came out, Stuart Copeland's Shadow was on the ceiling, Bigger Than Life, and then Sting's, and they started Roxanne, and I'm like, what? You know, because I was 7, that was 77, right? Yeah. So I was like 7 years old, and I'm like, what is this sound? This is the best thing ever. That ignited it. Because I just remember Stuart Copeland, it was just those 3 guys on stage. But the way he was lit on the drums, they had his shadow on like a whole half of the auditorium. You know, I forgot, the last concert I went to would have been when Sevendust played at the City Center. So I'd never been to the City Center. You know, I've made 3 records with them. Like, I know them longer than anybody I've ever worked with. And to be able to see him in my hometown, I had an extra ticket. We went and I got to hang out, and it was like I got to merge my life out there with the local thing, and it was a neat, you know. And I'm just like in there just watching the show, and they called, you know, they did a shout out to me and stuff, and they did a bunch of the songs that I was a part of. So it was like that was real cool. And but that was the last show I went to, and that was probably like maybe 6 months before the show stopped, you know.
Bummer.
But I loved that. I didn't know that. I'd never been to the City Center. It was great.
Honestly, a really good venue and decent sized, and the sound system is great. You could still have an intimate sense of being close to the stage, but it held a bunch of people. It's one of those things I miss.
Saying that, I've watched 2 Sevendust live streams, concerts that they've been putting on, and I'm finding, like, as I feel like an old man, I love that I can go to a show sitting at my desk, listening to it through my monitors. I've actually enjoyed kind of some of the stuff that's come out. I'll buy tickets to my TV till we can go see it again, but yeah. I think I would buy, like if they were playing, I would buy tickets half the time anyway to watch on the web, even if I could go to the show.
Right.
My ears don't suffer the next day, so I can keep mixing, you know?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and that's the thing too, is like, obviously the beer is a lot cheaper. I'm curious how, like, post-pandemic, how that will change, because now what about being able to have all these concerts? What about being able to have concerts that everyone else around the world can just tune into, buy tickets for, and hopefully, it's nice to see a band in person. That's great. I love it. But it is also nice to be, as you said, to just plug in and just, you get the best seat in the house in some ways, I have this question that I've been ruminating on because we're in a pandemic and I've missed the live show. To you, what makes a good music community? What makes a good music scene in a community?
I don't know. I just think that what I love about the Champaign scene, as opposed to having lived in LA for 20 some years, is how genuine most of the people I've had experiences with are. Doing it from a purer place than what I was around for so many years, and everybody supports each other in this scene. There isn't the same kind of thing that I was like being subjected to on a daily basis in LA. And so I just think that I love that there's just constant output. People are getting their music out and releasing things pretty much all the time, And we've got a lot of super talented people. I've done a handful of Elsinore remixes since the beginning. Right now I'm doing some stuff where Kayla Brown and Ryan are singing on some tunes of my dad's for something. And, it's cool. My friend Anthony just moved from Chicago. We got another great studio in Urbana, Anthony Gravino. And so now it's like, I don't know, it's feeling like there's a little bit of the good part of LA out here now. It's like, everybody's got a handful of really cool studios people can work at. And then beyond that, everybody's got their own in their house, When I moved back to town, it was like the scene's really welcoming, and I don't play very many shows. And Ryan would get me, Ryan and John Eisberg, whenever they had a show, they'd call me up and I'd be, okay. As I always get super nervous before shows. But first show that I ever played in Champaign by myself was at that Planned Parenthood fundraiser that was at the Accord. I had Larry Beers, the drummer from the Charming Beggars, and Kent Whitesell from the Martyrs, and that was like, we played like 3 songs at that thing, and that was real cool. I just think there's a lot of really super talented people, and people just keep making music and keep putting stuff out, and it can only get better. I like to see that, and it's been a nice nurturing place to be. I'm glad I've been here instead of California during this whole thing.
What brought you back to Champaign-Urbana?
Well, I'd been living in that little mountain town and doing remote work. Like one time came back through, I was going to move to Nashville, had a job in Nashville. That was about 4 years ago, went down there, worked the job, left in 2 days to get my stuff supposedly. And I came home and I'm like, I'm sorry guys, I'm not moving to Nashville. And I found an apartment here. I was like, Nashville felt too much like LA. It's like everybody's trying to get something accomplished instead of just being. There's a lot more of people just living life while being creative in Champaign that's way more exciting to me than people trying to achieve a certain amount of something. So I just came back and thought I'd leave, and now it's like, I don't even want to go back to Colorado now. It feels like home again.
COVID-19 got you down? You looking for some music? Some video games? Well, Exile Main Street still has all the things you need. New and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile Main Street still has something for any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile Main Street is taking orders, making deliveries, and pickups by appointment. They can find just about any music or video game you need. Check out their website, exilemainstreet.com, for links to their Discogs page for new additions. You can also contact them via Facebook Messenger to see what they can find for you. They can also be reached on Instagram, Twitter, email, or phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, Justin, what is your favorite non-musical thing?
What came up, I guess I just remembered when I read that question, my first thought was, can it be a mountain? I would say that it's the mountains in Crestone, and anywhere that I'm at there is my favorite thing, my favorite feeling. It's the only place I've ever been that when I arrived, my body and soul went home. Never had been there before. It would definitely be, Crestone. It's in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains at 9,000 feet.
And you moved there, correct?
I guess it was 2008. My dog Buddha passed away. I had a awesome Boston Terrier, and so one of my buddies goes, "Hey, it's a perfect opportunity for you to go to Burning Man." And then my other friend said, "When you get done with Burning Man, you're moving to Hawaii." I'm like, okay. So I did this kind of journey from going to my first Burning Man to driving to LA, getting on a plane, and going to move to Kauai. And while I was in Kauai, I'm like, I got island fever. That was not my kind of place. I get a phone call from a friend, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, I'm miserable in paradise. There's something wrong with me. and he's like, "I think you need to come visit me and my wife in Crestone. I think you're going to like it." And so literally within 5 days, I found my way, flew to LA, got in a car with my dad and his wife, and they went and moved to Santa Fe, and I got picked up in Santa Fe and drove to this place at night. And the people who picked me up go, "You don't have any idea where you're going, do you?" I go, "Nope." And when I woke up in the morning and saw out the window and saw this mountain, I'm just like, home. And it was and I just went there, and somehow I was, that place just took me in, and, it was kind of more like a Buddhist retreat for 7 years for me. I didn't even know anybody but 3 people for the first few years. And I just loved it, and so I've kind of trying now to have that same kind of feeling, but living here in this home instead of longing for needing to go and be somewhere else.
If your favorite thing is mountains, this is not the place to get mountains.
Well, and it's not like I climb them, so it's just more like I love really overcast days or cloudy days. I'll just pretend that there's mountains behind those clouds,
Yeah. It's interesting that you said, being particularly sad in or not sad, but not particularly happy in paradise, right? I was just thinking the other day, I said, gosh, sometimes there's these nice days that come up, and it's too much pressure. It's I don't want to be, look, I don't want you to impose the idea that I'm supposed to go out and do all these things. Can I just do my thing here? What if I want to work in the studio? Too bad it's a nice day. It's I don't want to go out in a nice day. I just want to have my time in the studio because this is the only day that I have off. Let me work in the studio, not feel like I have to be outside. And I wonder if maybe the idea of paradise was too much of you have to really enjoy yourself here, not really experience your own truth. But I feel like maybe the mountains for you, you know what? We're mountains, do your thing, but we're here if you need us. I don't know. That's what popped into my head.
I actually said that the other day to one of my friends. I'm like, "Oh, it's a nice day." I look out and I go back to my computer and go work on that song. I used to look so forward to the snow. When the snow came in Crestone, I knew that no one expected me to be anywhere for 4 months. Family, anything. And it was phone service was bad and blah, blah. So I had this complete kind of free life from, I was 1,000 miles away from my mom, 1,000 miles away from my dad. Nobody ever expected me to show up for holidays and things like that.
Right.
So now what Champaign has been like during the past year has been just like Crestone without the mountains. I now kind of own my time again, except for the daily phone calls to keeping in touch and working. But still, it's I just love working at home, and I've done it for so long, and I didn't do it for a little while, and it's just I'm so grateful that it's normal now. My old way of working is now normal for everyone.
Justin, thank you so much for being on the show and telling me all about your song Old Man in a Red Hat and your first opportunity to work in a recording studio and how you design your songs, and telling me about your initial experiences about when you first started out in Champaign-Urbana and playing at the age of 15 at Mabel's, and your favorite music venue, and then your favorite non-musical thing. And I'm sorry that Champaign-Urbana just doesn't bring mountains, but hopefully, it has all the things that keep your soul filled. So thank you for being on the show so much. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Sven. Thank you for listening to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. This is Justin Walden of Scarecrow Adams reminding you, great music is out there. Go find it where you live. Driving, I'm listening to Ministry, Psalm 69, the song Scarecrow. And it's like this really dark and heavy, slow song, right? And I'm like, dark and weird, Scarecrow Jones. And I look over and I see the Adams Family poster at Rocket Video on the left. And I'm like, Scarecrow Adams. That's it. Like, because I was looking for a mask, like something that I could kind of like not go and be Justin.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good. Studio South Peter on the inside.